This is a zoning board of appeals for City of East Ridge, January 13th, 2025. We normally do a invocation at the start of the meeting. So if everybody would stand, and I've asked one of our, Mitch, one of our...
Yeah, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity just to gather together. Just pray, Lord, that the conversations and decisions made this evening would just be uplifting and would be in the best interests of the city and the citizens here in East Ridge. We thank you for this opportunity to serve the city, serve the citizens, and to represent those as well. And just pray for conversations to have, and then also just pray for those in our community that are still affected by weather. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Be seated. Okay, my name is Stephen Leach. I'm the chairman of this august body. We have, if you'll do a roll call real quick for us, Melissa.
Chairperson Leach,
Here.
Board Member Pendley, Board Member Qualls,
Here.
Board Member Sharp,
Here.
Board Member Zitzow.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Just a little background on this board, if you've not been to this meeting before. This is the East Ridge Board of Appeals. We are composed just of citizens, property owners in East Ridge. We serve on a non-paid basis. We are not employed by the City of East Ridge and receive no remuneration for our services. Our purpose is to hear and decide on appeals from the standards of the zoning ordinance. This is the zoning ordinance that was adopted by East Ridge in 1989 and updated periodically. We have certain standards for variances that we must follow, adhere to, and that's based on state law and also based on the ordinance. So the standards for the variance are practical, difficulty, or unnecessary hardship. 2, the hardship must be due to unique circumstances that is peculiar to the particular lot. The hardship must not be self-created, and any variance granted must not result in substantial detriment to public health, safety, or welfare. We are a quasi-judicial body, which means we hold public hearings and conduct investigations into issues related to the zoning regulations, and then we can make decisions based on evidence presented. Also, there are specific standards as I mentioned, in the zoning ordinance and by state law. We do not have any punitive authority. We cannot fine anyone, and the enforcement of the standards of this ordinance is through the City of East Ridge only. Our decisions are final and binding, and any appeal from our decision are made to a court of competent jurisdiction and not the East Ridge City Council. As I stated, we are an administrative board and have only the authority we are granted under state law and the East Ridge zoning ordinance. This hearing has been properly advertised?
Yes.
We will try to reach a decision tonight. We don't like to defer because it brings, folks have to come out separately, and we don't like to hold cases over unless we just have to, based on the merits of the case. Tonight this evening we're gonna review the request of the applicant. We may have the staff and the city attorney speak to some of the issues that are associated with this. We'll allow the applicant opportunity to present their case, and there will likely be questions from the board. We will hear any comments and questions from interested parties in the audience. And if necessary, we'll hear any final comments from the applicant based on what has been discussed. The board will then discuss among themselves and render a decision hopefully this evening. So we want to review first as an administrative duty, our minutes that were, passed out. And, for the September 9th, 2024 Board of Appeals meeting. I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
I do have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. I do have a second. Any other questions? Thank you for staff for providing these minutes to us. All in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, good. Okay, we have one item in new business. It's a variance request 24/7. And, it's Buddy Presley representing Tanya Goins Floyd, 3210 Ardean Trail, to request a variance regarding setbacks and parking as stipulated in Article 5, Section 202, height and area regulations in the zoning ordinance, and Article 5, Section 203, off-street parking regulations. This was submitted to us as an application. Generally, the board has gone out and seen the property. They've gone by the property, so we're at least familiar with that. These are the nature of the specific request is outlined on their application 24/7. Was a variance for parking first responder buses in the R1 zone. So that generated apparently the request for both the parking and the side yard setbacks, I suppose. In the request. Michael, if you'll come up here and kind of give your call on this, the nature of this request, please.
Yes, members of the Zoning Appeals Board, to add some clarification to this, the applicant is requesting a variance from the specific requirements of Article 6, Section 105, which is storage and parking of trailers and commercial vehicles, which basically states in the supplemental regulations in the East Ridge Municipal Zoning Code, commercial vehicles, trailers of all types, including travel, recreational, boat, camping, hauling, shall not be parked or stored on any lot occupied by a dwelling or on any lot in an adjoining any residential district in accordance with the following. Not more than one commercial vehicle which does not exceed 1.5 tons rated capacity per family on the premise shall be permitted. In no case shall a commercial vehicle used for hauling explosive, gasoline, or liquid petroleum products be permitted. In a nutshell, that's really the basic of what the variance request is.
Okay. Michael, they did not stipulate that on the application, so I was a little concerned about what was the nature of their appeal. So that's what you determined that's the nature of this appeal. Okay. So
That's correct.
So it's Article 6, Supplemental Regulations, subsection 105, storage and parking of trailers and commercial vehicles, and that's under subsection 8, which discusses 1.5 ton rated capacity, one commercial vehicle. It says families living on the premise shall be permitted. Okay. Does the board have that? I've provided that to our board. That section of the ordinance, it's on the back page here.
Only persons living at the dwelling.
That's what it intimates, yeah.
What's the question?
Has everybody seen, was everybody able?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, Mr. Attorney, do you have any questions or thoughts about this?
Not immediately. At one point, let me check with the applicant. The applicant here. I'm the homeowner, but. Buddy Presley, okay. Did you authorize him to file that on your behalf? Okay. Is there a request other than this variance tonight, which again is variance number VR-24-7, Did you all have any requests that you wanted to make to this body relative to a postponement or a delay? Okay. And Mr. Presley did contact me today. My statement to Mr. Presley was neither I nor Mr. Howell had the authority to grant a continuance of this. This is a publicly noticed meeting, which we have people in the audience. This body has the authority, if you want to postpone it, that will require re-advertising, publication cost, which would be borne by the applicant. But you have the option of three things, really. You can deny the request to postpone. The property owner is here tonight, albeit without their attorney. You have the right to grant it and set it again. Or you can sort of do a hybrid, which is there's members of the audience here that may want to approach this. You all can have their input if you like. Problem with that is the request, we can identify what the request is. If the property owner wants to add to what the request is, we'll give them an opportunity to bring that information before this body. And then if this, the panel wants to consider taking in interested party statements, you can do that, take that under advisement, and reset it for a period that Mr. Presley could be here. But for what it's worth, Mr. Presley was notified on 5 different occasions that this meeting was tonight. And he didn't deny that. I've got those in every email that I sent to him. And so it's up to this body, whatever you all want to do relative to the property owner request.
Mr. Attorney, I do have a question. I went through the zoning ordinance, and I'll be happy to share this with the applicant. I have some copies about the nature of a variance, and it's in the definition section in the ordinance under 126. And as stipulated in that ordinance, it says a variance may not be granted to allow a change in use of the property. So I think one of the questions before the board is the parking of commercial vehicles in an R1 zone, single-family zone, trying to grant a change to the use of the property. And that just seems to be a sticking issue in my opinion, because further on in Article 4 in your zoning ordinance under C hearings, it says the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a determination that it has been delegated authority to render a decision in each case. And those seem to contradict each other. If we can't grant a variance from the use of the property, then we're really not, under the zoning ordinance, allowed. We don't have the authority to do that. That's sort of my dilemma.
Before we go too far down that path, we just maybe hear from the applicant what they're exactly trying to do here.
We've been servicing the city of East Ridge.
Can you go on the mic
Well,
so we can have you on record?
Before we get started on that, if you will talk to how long this is being continued, and I know she had 6 buses and all that kind of stuff. Would you talk a little bit about the history on this piece of property? Because there are facts stated in the application that this has been going on for quite a while, and I just am concerned about that too. So if you'll kind of stipulate what's been going on with the property.
We started in the 90s, early 90s. My family started running school buses for Hamilton County, the city of East Ridge. In 2000,
Yeah.
Tanya Floyd. In 2000, I bought the property 3216 Ardean Trail on the corner. And in 2006 or 8, I bought 3210 Ardean Trail right across the street. So we've housed buses at both locations since 2000. And it's never been an issue until February 28th of 2024 when we got the first complaint letter. stating that we needed to find a new location for the school buses. So
So,
we've been there 20-plus years.
so I did a little research online, and it's available online for anybody to look at the Hamilton County, Tennessee Geographic Information System, GIS system. I went online and looked at a photo of your property. And this, again, is the one at 3210 Ardean Trail. And it shows no buses in 2008, one bus parked there in 2010. Is that about when you started?
No, we started, my father-in-law started in the 90s. My husband started in the 90s also. I started driving in 2015. But depending on what time of day, our buses run from 6:30 in the morning till, depends on what time the field trip comes back at night. They may be out all hours of the day. We run emergency, school shooting. When the tornado hit East Brainerd and East Ridge, we evacuated those people with our school buses. So they're constantly on the road servicing the city of East Ridge.
I understand that, but as we got further down, 2010, one bus, 2012, one bus, 2014, two buses, 2016, three buses, 2018, three buses, 2020, two buses, 2022, three buses, and 2024, six buses. So not everybody lives at your house that drives a bus, correct? I mean, you have drivers that come in?
Yes, I have drivers that are employed by me that come in and drive my school buses.
So you're basically running it as a commercial operation for the benefit of Hamilton County schools?
Yes.
Okay.
I personally drive myself, and then I have other, since the demand for school buses has increased over the county, they've asked us to purchase more buses. And the reason there may only be one or two there at a time, those are spare buses. We are required to have a spare per route. So that's why there are so many buses. Because if you break down, you're still responsible for covering your route.
Well, I did notice at East Ridge Elementary the other day that there were buses parked there. Is there a reason why you cannot park buses?
Have you seen East Ridge Elementary?
Ma'am, I'm just asking you
I
a
know,
question.
that's what I'm saying. It's so overcrowded that we're not allowed to park at the schools for that reason.
Have you asked them for that?
Yes.
Have you?
Even the county that contracts us, they have that big bus lot downtown. We're not allowed to park there either. We've been denied access to that.
That's probably
90%
First Student that runs those
Right.
buses, right?
Right.
And
And
you're,
90%,
and you're independent, right?
correct.
Okay.
And 90% of the contractors for Hamilton County do park their buses at their home. I'm not the only one.
I understand. But this is the situation where we have six buses parked in a residential district. I think that's what attracted everybody's concerns. Have you sought other places to park your buses, other places you could park your buses?
We've always reached out to the schools, Hamilton County. There's no other place to park the school buses. That's why we park them at home, and we've been doing so for 20-plus years. It's never been an issue until here recently. And we even have a petition signed by our surrounding neighbors, and some of them are even here in the audience. They don't have an issue with it.
Okay, Mike, can you address how this information came to your, this information about the school buses parked there?
Yeah, we got a call from a citizen on it.
Board members, do you have any questions of the applicant?
If I'm understanding your application, you're saying the nature of the need for the variance is that this is a first responder related, but you're also stating that this is the day-to-day nature of the business, to have multiple vehicles there, workers show up to the property and then are deployed out of the property
Correct.
to daily routes. That's
We are
not a
on
first
call.
responder situation.
We are on call 24/7. I'm one of the first people they call to evacuate anything, a school shooting, the tornado, Red Cross. We are on call 24/7. I have to have access, and the county has written a letter. We have to have access to our school buses 24/7. And not only parking them, back to your response about parking them at a school, there's no security there. the buses that are parked there, there's been numerous times that they've showed up to run their buses and homeless people be sleeping inside. They've stolen the batteries, they're unable to run their routes, they've stolen the county equipment off of them. So it's unsafe for our buses just to be sitting out anywhere for the public to have access to.
I'm confused a little bit. You said 90% of the bus drivers do house their buses on their property and they don't have those problems?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
But that's not the first student buses that are down on off Dodds Avenue.
Those are the first student buses.
Right, and so it's really kind of a mixed bag. You've got private owners, buses that own their buses, and then you got First Student, which basically runs a fleet for the Hamilton County school system. So there's a mix.
Okay.
It goes back to when there was a county school system in the city. City always had their own bus system. The county used higher bus system, individuals. So,
Okay.
and I think in '97 they merged, and there was a lot of controversy about the buses, and because a lot of people invested in the buses that were driving in rural areas, and so. But the urban areas were basically city, and they were owned by the city of Chattanooga school system. As I recall.
Can you tell me how many times you've been called out as a first responder over this period?
When the Brainerd High School shooting a few months back, we were called out for it. The tornado that hit East Brainerd in the East Ridge area back in not sure.
2011.
11.
Anytime that there's a weather hazard and we have to dismiss school, we get a 15, 30-minute window where we have to be at the school to take those kids home. So there's not a big window for us to drive to, and we have these buses, you just can't jump in them and crank them and go. They have to sit there and warm up for 10 to 15 minutes. So that kind of closes our window even further.
But the drivers have to get to the buses, right? They have to.
Right. All my drivers live within the vicinity of East Ridge.
So how many outside employees do you have?
I have 6.
Okay.
Let me ask this, just because I think you hit on it. For this panel, this is a variance board. You all are able to grant variances provided that the variance shall not be with regard to the use. Ms. Howell, what is the zoning of this property?
It's zone R1, single-family residential.
All right, and so Ms. Floyd is, if I understand it right, you're running your business out of this house, correct?
Yes.
All right. That's a use, all right? What hardship with respect to, when you have a variance, it's a particular use that's otherwise permitted on the property, it's just some hardship that makes it impossible. Whether they have the buses or not is a use, is a business. And for this body, before it can make any determination, you have to make sure that you have this jurisdiction to do that. It has to be a collective decision. It can't be done just by the chair. It can't be done by Mr. Howell. It can't be done by me. But one of the requirements that goes into it before you're able to do it is under 102, is Article 4, Section 102. I think Mr. Leach alluded to this. But the municipal or East Ridge Board of Zoning Appeals, as right there, it talks about, it consists of the 5 members here nominated by they served consecutive term. And then it goes on to talk about, and it says right here, the jurisdiction and powers of the Board of the Zoning. It must make a determination it's able to hear and decide on appeals from property owners concerning any alleged errors in any order, any requirements, decision, or determination made by an administrative official, or to grant variances, provided that such variance shall not be with regard to use. It goes on to state in section 106, The purposes of a variance is to modify the strict application of the specific requirements wherein there are cases that involve exceptionally irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep lots or other physical conditions. In other words, a variance is a modification as it relates to a use that's already permitted on a tract, not to grant a use. And what I'm getting at, this body needs to make a determination, are you even able to hear the request? Even if you granted the right to have a bus stored there, that does not address the issue of the use, running a commercial operation in R1 zone. That is a rezoning. That would have to go through planning and then through the city council is what that, if this body determines that.
So the remedy, Counselor, is that they would have to apply for a zoning request for C1 or whatever zone was appropriate,
Right.
Michael?
Because
Yeah.
just because, right, I'm sorry.
And then that would go to planning commission and then on to city council for a amendment to the zoning ordinance. And that,
Well, in this case, if they were wanting to rezone the property, it would be through the planning commission to, of course, RPA first, planning commission, and then to city council for 2 readings. Now, to modify or amend the zoning, that would go to a planning commission as well, to amend anything out of the municipal, ordinance 481, to amend anything out of that.
And one thing, section 4:106C provides in here about the hearings. I think Mr. Chairman Leach went over. The Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a determination that it has been delegated the authority to render a decision in each case and that it is not performing a legislative function not delegated by the legislative body of the city. The legislative body of the city, of course, is the city council. And under section 104, only the city council may amend or supplement or change the regulation districts as it relates to the use of a piece of property.
So this is outside of our authority.
I mean, that's a determination you all would have to make, that this is not something that the variance being sought is to have more buses pursuant to section 6:105A, the storage and parking of trailers and commercial vehicles. Are buses more than 1.5 tons?
Yes.
They are, okay. So in addition to what the request is, it's not just to park more than one commercial vehicle, it's, in her case, to park 6 or 7, but also you'd have to give a variance to the 1.5 ton, but even if you gave that, you're operating commercially in an R1 zone district, and that is what is a use, and under the zoning, it would be something that has to go start with the regional planning agency, which then proceeds, and this is Title 13 of the Tennessee Code, would then go to planning commission and then to city council there. And you would have to get with the regional planning agency to identify which type of zoning you would have to go to from R1 to be lawfully operating a commercial bus operation that involves employees, hired employees, and for the property that you want to do this on, you would have to bring that forward to the planning commission and then to city council. That would be the proper method if this body determines that this is really a use and not necessarily a variance, because again, variance is, it's got to be a use already permitted on the property, but for some hardship. The classic example, you're able to have a sign on a piece of property because you're operating. It's just the sign has to be on the east side, and for whatever hardship, you need to put it on the west side. Your request for a variance would be, we're already allowed a sign, we just need to put it on the west side. We can't put it on the east side. That would be a variance. If you were never allowed a sign, because it's not allowed in that zone, you would have to go get a zoning change for purposes of being permitted to have a sign. Then you would determine where it would go at that point. And so this body cannot perform a legislative function that's not otherwise been delegated to it.
yeah, Counselor, thank you. It appears to me to be a use variance, and Michael can probably address that too. I mean, that's sort of a term of art, but it just means that there's a variance that you're trying to get to use a piece of property a certain way that's not stipulated in the zoning ordinance. And it's not, what we normally deal with up here is a side yard variance, where a house has to be moved closer to a side yard or a front yard. And those are the kinds of normal variances that this board looks at. We don't normally, I've been on this board a number of years, I don't remember ever having a use variance proposed to us. So I just don't think that falls within our jurisdiction. So,
So before what we need to move forward, and I know you've asked for postponement. Postponement may not be relevant because this body is the wrong body to hear this, what you're seeking to do. And so, let me ask this.
Potentially,
What's that?
potentially.
Potentially, if that's so. Before we move forward, this body, Chairman, you need to take a vote as to whether or not you believe you have the jurisdiction to hear the request, which involves the operation of a commercial in an R1 zone district.
Yeah, but let me suggest this to the applicant. We could have a situation where we moved forward and acted on this in the negative, not in your favor. That could potentially preclude you from seeking what council here just mentioned, that this, if we don't have, after potentially a legal extended fight, the authority to make that decision because it's outside the scope. We're not making a decision based on the topography, how it lays. We're making a decision on something that's really not relevant. That could potentially, I don't know, lock you out from pursuing this further. So I don't know, maybe the council can speak to that. If we were to act on it, that
I know under for a rezoning denial, it's 100 and how many days or how many months is it?
So, yeah, if you're denied rezoning, it's 1 year.
1 year, yeah. If it's denied here, the recourse is you'd have to take it to a court of competent jurisdiction, which would be the courts in Hamilton County. But that court would have to make a determination that this body even had the authority, which again is a variance, not a determination related to use. So, I think what Mr. Zitzow is saying is, if this body determines it doesn't have the jurisdiction, that you're not prohibited tomorrow from filing with the RPA to seek a zoning modification relative to whatever property or properties you're seeking to operate commercially relative to this bus operation. And so that's what this body needs to determine first, whether it even has the jurisdiction. Jurisdiction finding does not operate as a denial, doesn't operate as an approval either. It just simply means it's the wrong body that this request is before, because again, even if they found a variance relative to Section 105 as it relates to the buses to park there, that does not give you a variance to operate a commercial business in an R1 zone district. Does that make sense to you?
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
So zooming out of the bigger picture and the legal questions that we don't have the ability to really pin down today, my opinion as just a board member here is that you are asking essentially to give a wider interpretation of what is commercial use, and I wouldn't be for it. The fact that it's been done extensively for a long period of time, I don't think really sets the stage for it being the forever allowed permissible use. I don't know if we're here to really even determine that that's our call to make, but as it's presented to us, here's the proposal that we've been called here to come judge on. From what I've seen from your application, you are essentially asking to just make this a full-blown commercial property use. You're asking however many buses can physically fit on that be allowed to be there in that residential area.
Correct. I do believe that's what Mr. Presley was going for.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, it says in the app, as it states here, the use for first responders for transportation needs in an emergency situation for school safety. Of course, it says would not make the property unusable in either situation. But to get to that, you gotta find, is that even a permissible use in an R1 zoned property? And for that, R1 zone properties permitted uses are detached single-family dwellings, playgrounds, parks, childcare homes, accessory uses, and customarily incident and subordinate to the above. And then, of course, within that residential, you can have nonprofit residential homes. There are uses on review, uses permitted on review, childcare center, church, library, public-private. But again, a use on review would be done through city council.
City council.
This would be, and it states there, city council would have to provide for that and approve for it. So that's what the property is currently allowed uses under R1 residential district, which again is Article 5, Section 200.
Okay, we've heard from the applicant. We would like to entertain any questions or comments from the public at this point. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Ron Reniger. My wife and I live at 1105 Tamarack Trail. We've been there over 40 years. These have been our neighbors the entire time, just about, that we've lived on that property. The folks there, they're really, really nice. They're helpful in every way. We love having them as neighbors. My bedroom window is looking right down over the buses, and it doesn't bother me when those diesels start up in the morning. I either sleep in or get up. And but we have no problem whatsoever with their situation. Could I ask one more question of the city attorney? If you say that they're operating a commercial business, and I understand that, does Mr. So-and-so that parks his two buses on one of those, and he's getting paid for that, isn't he running a commercial business?
I didn't, you cut out there a little bit. What?
Okay, one of the things you brought out was that they're running a commercial business.
I asked the property owner, and her answer was
Right.
yes.
Okay, but I was just wondering, I was sitting there wondering, we have people that have their own buses that they work for or deliver for the county. Now, but they park in their yards and beside that, and they get paid for it. Isn't that a commercial business?
Right. Well, first of all, I'm here on this, so I'd have to look at the circumstances of these other. We are aware that there may be other violations that occur in this city. My understanding in talking to the city manager is it is a complaint-based. When they detect something or discover something, what percentage of it is complaint filed? 90, 95%,
yeah.
close to 100%. And a lot of that's just due to the resources. So, but they're also, again, we're here on this one. If there are others, my understanding the city will investigate those and take the appropriate action to the extent that they receive notice or is discovered through their ordinary course of their occupations as code enforcement. So that's the best I can answer it, but in this situation, I asked the property owner and her answer was, yeah, we're operating a commercial bus leasing company in this district. But I would encourage this body, I mean, you can hear from all this, but the first determination you've got to make, and this isn't just any court, if you go to a court of competent jurisdiction, has to make a determination. It has the jurisdiction to hear a case. If it doesn't entertain it. And so this body needs to make a determination. Is this within the jurisdiction, or will it be engaging in a non-legislatively delegated act?
Mr. Reniger, are you finished with your statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate you
Are
hearing.
there any others in the audience that would like to make a comment? Please, your name and address.
Hi, my name is Dawn Bunn. You want what?
Your name and address.
Oh, my address. I'd rather not give it because I don't want to be retaliated against.
Okay, I mean,
I've received several
Well, hold on.
citations. I just want to ask if, when she asked for a continuance, the comment was, per the attorney, well, we've already advertised it, we've used money, we've used people's time, blah, blah, blah. So she was not allowed the continuance or her legal representation here, when apparently it sounds like you already knew that you were going to bring up the fact that, oh, hey, guys, y'all don't even have the right to do this. So you ask her questions without her legal representation by saying, oh, no, well, we don't want to waste all these people's time. But you got to ask her questions, and it sounds like to me, I don't know about everybody else, but to me, it sounds like you already had, oh, well, y'all ain't even got the right to do that anyways.
I don't know that any finding has been made on that. That's for this body to make that determination.
But that's what, I'm just saying, that's what it sounds like to me, is, hey, guys, do you really have the right? Well, due to this rule and this regulation and this, do you really have the right? Do y'all want to vote on that? Again, you were asking her questions without her legal representation, so we did not waste time, other people's time and money. So, I mean, that's just what I'm asking. How is that fair to her?
well, ma'am, she is the applicant, so she is here, she's representing herself at this point.
She asked for a continuance.
I understand that request, and we just need to deal with, probably the largest issue we've got is whether or not we're even entitled to be hearing this case. So
Correct.
that's a decision we have to make up here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was just wanting to ask, because for over 20 years, the buses have parked there, and I understand that you said, hey, if I had to vote, it's gonna be no, because, you don't like that idea, and that's fine. That's your opinion and that's your vote. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the only time this become an issue is when a city employee wanted to purchase property from her and other items and was told no, then that's when they received the complaint from a city employee. And I just think that's a little unfair, and maybe that should be checked into. Thank you.
Yes, sir. State your name and
Jeremy
address, please.
Tankersley. I'm partners with Anya, and she is my fiance in the buses, and we work together with these.
And what's your first name? I'm sorry.
Jeremy,
Jeremy, okay.
and I would like for y'all to see the petition that we had signed by our neighbors was not just Mr. Reniger that got up here and spoke. And we tried to reach out to our neighbors so they could come tonight. And they're all on board with this, but it was such short notice because we were notified this morning by our attorney that this had been postponed until February. 3 hours later, we get a call that it had not been postponed. She had a CT scan scheduled for 4:30 that has been scheduled for 2 months. We had to cancel today to be here at 5:30. These neighbors that have signed this is not just 3 neighbors. There's 22 on the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's about 10 or 12 of these plus a letter from the neighbors, and we just ask y'all to look at this. We're
You
just,
want-
we're
you
just
wanna bring
trying
it to
to
the
do.
dais? Thank you, Jeff.
And I guess my next question, if there's such a complaint on this and it's such an issue, and these buses are in uniform position every day, there's nothing in the road, there's nothing blocking the roadway, they're clean, they're washed, they're maintained daily. Where's the complainer tonight? Isn't that public record? Doesn't the complainer have to show up to represent themselves?
No.
My next question is, if it's such an issue, why did the city of East Ridge contact us like they do every year to provide buses for your Christmas parade? And we provided those buses, and we paid our employees out of our pocket. We didn't charge the city of East Ridge. We do that every year to help the city of East Ridge out. We're all about supporting the community and helping this community out. And the city. We're delivering kids in a safe and timely manner every day to ball games, field trips, after school programs, pick them up in the morning, carry them home in the evening for the city of East Ridge. These schools in this city, not in Ooltewah, city of East Ridge. When we're going down 3rd Street to CSAS with one of our buses and we get a call that there's gang retaliation and that there's police at every intersection, from right outside the tunnels, everywhere due to a shooting at Brainerd High School. It's our job to provide a safe environment for those kids. I assume every one of y'all have children. I have too. I'm very protective over them. I don't let them ride with anybody. I want them to be in a safe environment. When they go to school, you hope they're in a safe environment, correct? So, do these buses need to be parked at an off-site location where you value the safety of the buses? You don't know who gets in a bus when you don't have control over what's going on at 2 in the morning. In a 90-passenger bus and somebody's under the back seat, you crank it up, the first stop you pick up 6 kids on South Seminole Drive and somebody comes out from under the back seat and there you go. We have security at our house. We have cameras that watch these buses every day. We are there every day watching these buses. And none of these neighbors have an issue with them. And they all commend us for the service we provide. And that's all we're trying to do. And we feel like this is a personal vendetta that's been brought upon us. Because obviously, if somebody's got a problem with it, if they'll come to us, we can talk about it. We're sensible human beings. We're very easy to get along with. But as you can see, there's no issues on this petition with any surrounding neighbors. And we're just asking you to consider this so we can do what we do.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other? Yes. State your name and your address, please.
Andrade, 3216.
Can you spell that for the?
Jose, Jose, Andrade, Andrade. Address 3216 Erdien Trail. I live right in front of her, of where the school buses are located. Been there for 15 years. It's now being, in the neighborhood. I've been in that house since 2014. And then I never have a problem when they start the buses or nothing. I know Tanya, she's been working. They work really hard on keeping the buses always to pass whatever the inspectors need to keep moving, taking the kids to school, take them home, and have them always safe. So I just want to say that it doesn't bother me at all, or my family, and I know my other the neighbors around. I talk to them and ask them, and they say they don't really have a problem with it. And we've been there for years.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I think I saw another hand or two out here. Yes, sir.
I'm slow, too.
Got me beat. I said, you have me beat then. I'm just slow. If you give your name and address for the...
Sir, my name is Glenn Floyd. I live 1528 John Ross Road. I've lived out here for 58 years. That's longer than some of you are old. I was in the bus business. Ralph Hooper and I were together. We drove buses together. And the city got on us. And the state come in and straightened it out about us parking at home. And if they got records somewhere about where the state came in, straightened it out, and they could do it again if so mote be. But I thank you.
Okay.
I thank y'all for the job doing. Thank you for listening to me. And y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. Is there another person that'd like to address the board? Okay, seeing.
Talk to the applicant.
Yeah, we'll get back to the applicant in a second. Seeing no other questions from the floor, is there any questions about what the city attorneys mentioned?
I don't think so.
Okay. Would you like to make, the applicant like to make another comment? Okay, thank you. So I think the chair is a little concerned that we have jurisdiction. I think that's
what
what
I've not heard from the applicant is something about the condition of the property. So,
I don't know that that's relevant, actually.
well, under the state law, we can make a variance based on the condition of the property as opposed to a problem that the applicant has. So the problem that the applicant has is they've gotten code violations for the commercial use on their property, but it's not a condition of the property that's resulting in that.
No.
It's not a topography issue. It's not a distance from the property line issue. So that's why I want to ask the applicant if, we're for sure here, we're not talking about any issue that's related to a condition of the property.
Well, if you go out there and look at it, it's been leveled to the point where they can park 6 buses. So that's basically, and gravel, correct. Correct. And all that's shown up on the GIS over time. It shows it how it's expanded. So I don't think it has to do anything with the issues of slope, particularly on this piece of property. It's just the use of the property at this point in time is for bus parking, commercial bus parking in a residential zone. And I, as a chair, I just don't think we have that jurisdiction to review, to make that determination.
Yeah, I would. Oh, go ahead. I would share the chairman's concern. Looking at the Article 4, 105A, it talks about 1 commercial vehicle per family living there. But if there's only 1 family living there, that's 5 extra commercial vehicles. And not all the drivers reside there. So I would kind of question whether we have the jurisdiction to, or we have the ability to make a determination on it. Because as the city council, as the counselor pointed out, becomes a usage question. Whether it's being used for commercial use as commercial business. It's also residential, but it's being used as commercial business. And that seems to go beyond the scope of what we've been charged by the city council to make decisions around.
And the way that was drafted, Michael's brought this out, but the way it was drafted is limited to the size of that commercial vehicle. So and it only allowed the 1. So it has not only a numerical limitation, but it has a size limitation. So I think that's where if you went to amend the ordinance, which I think is really the remedy at this point in time, you'd have to amend it to allow for a very large vehicle, or in maybe the number of vehicles, and that would be consistent with the ordinance. The way it is now, even one bus would not be consistent with the ordinance, the way I read it, and that's why I furnished some information about bus sizes, and weight, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, ma'am? Please.
Get on the mic, please.
Back to the whole leveling out of the ground, we did that because we expanded the home and had an in-ground pool put in. That was why the leveling of the backyard was done, not for the school buses, but because we had to do that to build the in-ground pool, which we did get permits for. And back to the commercial business, I'm not sure if I'm answering these terms correctly without Mr. Presley being here, but I'm not for hire. Like, you just can't call me and say, ooh, I want you to come haul my wedding group for X amount of dollars. I'm not for hire. I only work for the school system. So I'm not.
But you're paid per bus.
I am
per mile.
contracted, and I am an employee of Hamilton County Schools.
But this is your livelihood, is?
Yes, yes. But I am not for hire.
Okay, thank you. So, there is a remedy to this, but I don't think this body is the remedy. That's my personal opinion.
I agree with you.
I think.
Well,
I think
you could argue that determination could be within our scope, and that the variance may not be granted, allowed change in the use of the property. We could deny based on the applicant hasn't asked us to make a change in the use of the property, essentially asking us to change the zoning type.
Well, I think what Michael stipulated at the first of this was that it was the size and type of vehicle being parked, and the number of vehicles being parked.
That's correct. If it's over 1.5 ton in a residential district, that would be a violation of the supplemental ordinance, which is 481.
So again, I think that was legislative intent when this ordinance was passed, that it limited to a single vehicle of a certain size. And I think that was the intent of the ordinance.
If we do deny, if we choose not to make a decision on it based on not having the authority to make the decision that's being asked, does that put them in violation of the existing law?
They're already in violation, right, Mike?
That's correct. They
Okay.
are.
Yeah, and is it our role to second guess whether something should even be in front of us?
Yeah.
Or we're tasked with voting yes or no on what's presented to us?
But the remedy going forward to be to go to either get a zoning or to have the ordinance amended that would allow them to do what they're trying to do. So,
Yeah.
Counselor, is that correct?
If I understand you correctly, I mean, if this body, you have to make a determination, you have the jurisdiction to even render any finding. Because under the requirements, you have to make a finding relative to the variance, that there are hardships and there are things. And what I'm trying to state to you all is, if you all find that you just don't have any jurisdiction, then that is the number one thing that any court has to find, is two things. One, that the parties before them have standing, and two, that the court itself has the jurisdiction. If you don't make that, it does not prejudice them relative to this body. There's not a requirement that you go, you could file an appeal to argue that they do have that jurisdiction, but you have the avenue of going through the rezoning process so that the property can be rezoned for the intended use of what you're using it for today. So you're not prejudiced by a finding of non-jurisdiction. It just means you got to go to the proper body, of which that would be through RPA, Planning Commission, and then ultimately the City Council would make that determination. That's all this would be finding.
Or Counselor, in the same manner, could they request that the city amend the ordinance to allow multiple buses or whatever to be parked in a residential zone?
But they could always ask the, lobby or legislatives to representatives to make an ordinance change or an amendment to the entire zoning relative to R1. You can ask that. That wouldn't be a rezoning request for specific property. That would be a modification to the actual zoning ordinance 481.
But then that opens up this sort of thing to anybody who chooses to put 6 school buses on their property. I'm not-
Right, well, that's up to that body. I mean, whatever they want to craft.
I see,
mean, if
okay, all right.
And
if they order me to craft a particular amendment to the zoning,
And it could be through a special permit to the city council or,
there wouldn't be a process. That it's just something that the body, to put it up on for the city council, it's something that
Well,
could be put up by 2 legislative
but,
members of the
but
body.
the ordinance, the change in the ordinance could put it into the special permit.
They could, oh, I'm
category.
sorry. Yeah, the city council could do however they want to. They could put it as an R1 and then have it as a special use permit on review, the operation of or the allowance of rental of school buses, or however you want to craft that. Yeah, the city council has that authority to do. They wouldn't apply for, there's no application. It's something that you'd have to lobby your legislative members of the council to put on the agenda, to go through the zoning modifications, come up, it's to go through planning commission, then come up for 2 readings on the city council. That would not be property specific. That would be citywide. So that
Okay.
anybody that wanted to, they would go through use on review, similar to short-term vacation rentals. You know, those are done by review. They're not property specific. Now, they have to be in certain zones, but that person, if you're in a specific zone and it allows an use on review, then they go apply for that use on review. But again,
So there's several avenues of remedies.
there's options that you have to try to go that route. But for a variance, you've got to have the right to have the use as something that's already permitted on the property. The variance is, again, the hardship, like the sign. Maybe it's the height requirement, or you see a lot of these, you all deal with the setbacks. It's generally your one where, you know, a particular building can fit, it just needs, instead of a 10-foot setback, you need an 8-foot. That's a variance because the structure is able to be built. It just can't fit given the topography of the property. And so that's what I'm getting at is, it's required by the code to make a finding first of anything that you have the jurisdiction. If you find that you do, then the next thing is she made a request for postponement, of which you've heard interested parties here. You can allow postponement and allow Mr. Presley to appear at the next one if you wanted to. But Mr. Presley being here or not being here is
Doesn't
really
change
not
that.
make much if you don't have the authority to hear it in the first place.
Sir, I'll give you one more comment.
Yes, and we're learning here. We're trying to do what's right.
Us too.
But this was filed on October 11th by our attorney with the city. We were notified, and I believe it says when you file this that you, within 30 days of filing, you have a hearing date. Is that correct?
Right. The problem was finding a quorum on it.
Okay. We didn't get a hearing date till December 6th. Now, our attorney is not here to represent us. We are unrepresented. We are standing up here doing the best we can. We've asked for continuance on this, and I understand it. I've learned a lot tonight. December 6th is when we got notification of our hearing date, which is today, January 13th. We were advised first that our application was pulled from the stack and laid to the side by you, Mr. City Attorney, that you laid it to the side because no one knew which way to go with it. Nobody knew how it needed to be addressed. That's why we didn't get a court hearing tonight until January 13th. Now, this is what we're being told. This is what we're going on.
And who told you that?
Our attorney.
Not me.
No, I've never met I'm
you.
just asking a question is all I'm doing. We're clueless. We're trying to figure this out, just like, you know, being told it was canceled, and then tonight we're here.
And who told you it was canceled?
Our attorney. So we're just, at some point in time between it being filed with the city, who reviews this to make the decision, well, maybe this just went the wrong, they should have went to this direction here. Does anybody contact us and say, hey, we believe you're going the wrong direction, you need to go this way?
Can we talk to the applicant here again? Do I understand you've asked for a continuance? You'd prefer this to be continued to a later time?
Yes, I'm assuming.
I'm inclined to entertain that. I don't want you guys to feel hard feelings, feel like you were underrepresented in this. We don't want to get pulled into some legal quagmire either. I would entertain a motion to postpone this.
I think I'm the chair.
Hmm?
I think I'm the chair.
I'm feeling the temperature of the room here.
Yeah.
If a motion was proposed, I would vote for that to postpone this such that you could have your council present or do any further research you need to do about potentially other avenues you might pursue other than this zoning variant, or not zoning, or variance you're seeking tonight. How does some of the other
My
members feel
concern
about
would
that?
be if we give a continuance and at a later date determine the same thing that we're kind of prepared to make a decision on tonight, is that we aren't the people you need to be talking to about this, then all that does is further delay a decision by the correct authority, which is what I think we all believe needs to happen next.
Mr. Attorney, do you have any comments about that?
No, I mean, that's the reality, is if you don't have the authority to hear it, whether you hear it today or in a month from now, you could get the same finding that this is not the right body to make a determination, because the legislative body, the city council, has not delegated that authority to this body, which is the use of the property, which is not something a variance this Board of Zoning Appeals can make a finding on. That is the city council, and that's by the city zoning ordinance. And so Ms. Sharp is, what she's saying, and you're not prejudiced by the fact that this body says they don't have the jurisdiction. It just means you got to go through the proper channel to do it.
I guess what our question is we have an attorney. He's not here tonight. He's
In court elsewhere.
in court hearing cases elsewhere and could not be here. I understand, the city of East Ridge was closed Friday due to the weather that we had, just like every city and municipality around us. We tried to contact him on Friday and did not get a response. And we obviously wasn't going to get a response if we called here because y'all were closed, just like the buses did not run on Friday. So I guess we would feel more comfortable if he was here so he could hear this and we're all on the same page instead of us trying to relay it to him or getting things turned around. I mean, that's why we hired him to represent us. So we are asking for a continuance, just
We understand, yes.
for clarification.
Okay, we got a couple of decisions we need to make. We can go with the continuance, but it won't change the ordinance any. It won't determine whether we have jurisdiction or not. Michael, do you have any thoughts on this, or?
I don't. It's been explicitly told to you guys, this is a use variance. This is not a variance when it comes to adverse topography for a lot where you're looking for a side yard setback, a front yard setback, a rear yard setback. This is a use. The use is to park school buses in R1 single-family district.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking for a motion in any direction. Whether it be a continuance motion or a motion, Mr. Attorney.
Well, the code talks about it. I mean, it just says it has to make a finding. I would recommend that to take action, you'd want to find someone that takes a motion and says, I'm making a motion that this is outside of our authority and that we don't have the jurisdiction to hear it. I would suggest you go through that and entertain a motion that way. If code is silent on how that determination is to be made, my recommendation is then make it an official one through an act of this body, which would be a motion to find that based upon what has been identified as to the intended use of the property, you don't have the authority under the city code to make any decision.
I appreciate that. We've got the benefit of your legal opinion now, but that's not an ongoing thing. We would not normally have the benefit of you here and having or making that inside the scope of each decision. Is this inside the scope of what our authority says? Hasn't been on the forefront of discussions prior to now. We'd normally be, this is what's presented to us, yay or nay. But you seem to be suggesting that this is outside the authority of what would be determined in the scope of this board.
If what I'm hearing right is that this is for the use of operations of a school bus, of drivers for hire that come in, that use the buses for the transportation of children, and it's a paid operation. That's a commercial use. That's not permitted in an R1. I mean, the code official, R1 is for single dwelling.
So do you feel it would be inside the scope of our authority to say that we would reject proposal based on it being outside of our authority? Give them a variance that is outside.
We can't make a determination on the requested relief if you don't have the authority to give that relief on the front end.
Yeah. And that authority is determined by
what it states in the code.
Government.
Yeah. If you decide you want to say, okay, because you make a good point, Mr. Zell, which is if you want to have Mr. Presley here for an opportunity for him to identify the position, you can. You can do that. We continue it for a month.
But that doesn't really change the scope of our mission as zoning appeals.
No, because the delegated authority is, as it relates to variances, deal with hardships. And you would have to find, after you have the authority, the findings that there are certain hardships that exist as a result of the property itself.
Yeah.
The hardship, the property is zoned. The zoning occurred well before any of this use started. I think it's way back in, 89, I think?
Yeah, 89.
The hardship would be the finding of, again, the size of the property, the topography, the lay of it. Not a hardship of it's zoned R1, and we're trying to use the property for the operation of buses for the transportation of children in exchange for or in consideration for payment.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. I'm looking for a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the case isn't within our scope of jurisdiction as given by the city council. So that we should.
So is that deny?
It's not to deny, it's to say that I make a motion that we don't have the authority to hear the case as given, as the jurisdiction given us by the council. So not denying anything, but just saying we don't have the authority to even make a decision.
To even vote. I second that.
That is be the same thing as essentially declining to vote on it.
Yeah, because we have no authority to vote.
Right. What that effectively would be doing is it just simply is dismissing the case.
Yes.
It's not a
Dismissed.
denial. If it's denied, it would force them to have to go to court.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
We don't do that.
To overturn the decision.
I think we understand that y'all have been good neighbors during the time that you have been operating this, and that there has been minimal objection, almost zero, from the community in which you're operating. We have no reason to disrupt that or to have some citation for the operation of your business. We can't decide any of that, is the way I feel about it, and that's the way I'm afraid I have to vote, is that I simply would, if there is a vote, I abstain. If we are voting to pass this back to the proper authority, and I can't say I know who that is, I would say the Planning Commission, then it's out of our hands. So,
Because my understanding would be, even if we did, say, vote to grant a variance, then we don't have the authority to change the use of the property to be used for commercial. So our variance approval would not really matter because the property is being used beyond its zoning. And so that kind of makes our decisions as being able to approve or deny a variance kind of irrelevant, because we can't make a determination on, as the attorney had said, we can't make a determination on, you know, getting permission from the city council, planning commission, whoever, to be able to use it for commercial. And as was said, we greatly appreciate what you guys do. We're just in a weird spot where we can't really make a decision that would impact it because we can't change that zoning.
So to restate the motion, this is a motion to dismiss this case, BR 24/7, based on the fact that this board does not have jurisdiction.
Yes,
correct.
that's correct.
And I
Before
second
we
that, yeah.
take a second on that,
Okay.
can we just ask the council?
Already got a second. So.
Okay. Before we have a vote, we ask the council, is there any reason we wouldn't want to do that? Or we couldn't do that?
I mean,
As I understand, the proposed motion is to just dismiss essentially without prejudice, not acting one way or the other.
that's right. This is
Yeah.
a dismissal without prejudice.
Yeah.
They don't have to go to a court to seek a reversal.
And,
So that
and
motion's
we
been
cannot
supported.
advise them on what to do next. It's out of our hands. Is that correct? as
Right, we're
well?
not-
Yeah.
We can make some suggestions.
The question for council was that as it's proposed, does that work from a legal standpoint?
Does it work that they are not
Yes.
prejudiced?
It's
No, that
dismissed without prejudice.
does the motion stand water legally?
Yeah, the motion as it is I'm
Okay.
fine with it, yeah. Because it's a non-action relative to the requested relief.
Gotcha.
You're not making any action relative to the requested relief, which of course is the request.
I just
for
want to
variance.
confirm
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
No.
so we had the motion, we did have a second.
Yes.
Can, if we can restate that, can you restate it from your minutes, or are you gonna pull it off the tape?
I cannot. I have it all recorded.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me, the motion was that to dismiss the case for lack of jurisdiction
There we go.
without prejudice.
Okay, we have that motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. All in favor of that motion to dismiss without prejudice, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, I think applicants, I think if you will talk to Mike and figure out a way forward, you've got a suggestion, try to get a zoning change. You can try that route, which is a planning commission back to city council, East Ridge City Council, or you can try to have the city council amend the zoning ordinance. Again, that goes to planning commission, but really it would start probably with staff and city attorney to try to craft language that would protect the community and allow you to do what you're trying to do.
Yes.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Counselor. Okay. Well, we got, Mike is gonna, Mike, we've got continuing ed to go here. I know you're just, can't hardly stand it. I handed out,